So there's this one Dutch saying that has got me thinking wider and deeper about many situations around me and just generally how to approach living in the Netherlands. Perhaps for me, it's the most important Dutch saying of all time because in many ways it feels reflected in the culture and in the people as a whole, at least from where I'm coming from. And the saying is, Doe Normaal, dan doe je al genoeg. Which translates as just act normal, that's crazy enough. Or be normal, that's crazy enough. Now, let me just issue a little caveat. Before you start typing out, your history lesson in the comments, which you are absolutely allowed to, like the title of this video says, these are simply my views and interpretations of this particular saying and how I chose or choose to apply it to my life. And again, before you start typing, but it's not your language, you don't understand it fully and you can mistranslate or misconstrue it. I know, you're right. But you don't need to get worked up. My interpretation of it doesn't harm anyone. It's just an expression and how I see it happening in my life. Now, there are a lot of schools of thought around this particular saying, and like any school of thoughts, there's bound to be controversy. From the translation I've personally heard from Dutch people, the general consensus for this particular saying is that it's about Dutch humility, that it's unnecessary to be overly boastful or seek attention, especially with your possessions or your achievements. And for me, I see this reflected in the general atmosphere here in the Netherlands, where everyone seems content to have their little piece of the peace, to enjoy their space and to live a quality life without being inconsiderate of others. And although, on the other hand, as broad and subjective as this saying goes, there are a lot of people who actually dislike it because for them it carries a negative connotation. There's this school of thought that leans toward the principle of conformity for this particular saying, that everyone should behave the same way and not try to stick out too much and not draw unnecessary attention to themselves. To go with the flow, not to stand out. And this paints a picture of the kind of normalcy that, it boxes an entire people into a space where the extraordinary things aren't celebrated, but rather frowned upon. And in some cases, this saying is interpreted as a way of telling someone that they are embarrassing themselves and they're doing too much and they're not being themselves, or that it's unnatural to stand out. It basically doesn't celebrate being eccentric, if I should put it that way. Now, some of these views were expressed on a Reddit page, and I will read out a few of these conflicting interpretations I found there. This first one says, well, it's usually said as a command to someone who is doing something out of the ordinary. If someone is wearing strange clothes, acting wacky, or has unconventional views, the term Doe Normaal is said by bigoted people who think they know how to live. Yeah. And this one says, nowadays, I think it actually means that people just can't stand other people being different. Fear of change. And this one also says, it always has. Honestly, you can't do things out of the norm without being judged. And this one says, Doe Normaal makes me feel uncomfortable. Should we not celebrate differences and eccentricity? I feel this encourages a lack of tolerance in society. Now, while all these takes are true to the experiences and subjective interpretations of these Reddit posters, I tend to agree more with this particular one response, which said that Doe Normaal just usually means being aware and considerate of the people around you, or being eccentric is fine as long as you don't bother other people with your eccentricity. And yeah, I'll go further to add that as long as you don't go out of your way to make so much effort to be a nuisance to another person, then you're fine. That's what I think it is. Now, when I compare the society here to where I come from, there is nothing Doe Normaal about how expressive people can be in most European cities that I've visited. Very expressive. I'm not saying that as a generalized notion that there isn't discrimination or intolerance or bigotry toward people who choose to experience this reality in their own way without bothering anyone. However, it's so much freer than what I have experienced all my life living on a different continent. So now that I've shared enough of what this saying evokes for most people, here's how I am personally choosing to let it affect my view on things. And I think the concept of what is normal is basically the reality our collective threshold can handle. And that's already crazy enough if you think about it. Our entire existence on this planet revolving in perfect speed around the sun and space, and minor changes can just be catastrophic. That's already crazy. And before this turns into some deep, dark arguments about existential crisis, I'm just simply saying that normal really isn't normal. We've just learned to adjust and adapt to things so much that it's become mundane. And so for me, I'm guessing the biggest lesson would be to remember the beauty in the mundane, mostly. Now, before something becomes even mundane or normal, it grows from newness, and that's often very exciting or spanning. An example of such a journey would be, deciding to relocate and the process of planning, working, selling your stuff, flying out, finding a home, registering yourself in a municipality and so on. It's crazy to imagine when it was happening, but now it feels normal. Then you get to the point where you have your own routine, and all of this isn't to be taken lightly. What is now normal was very crazy before when you think about it. So for me, this saying makes me appreciate the mundane. When you are aware of the journey or your journey to get to this peaceful state of affairs, you are grateful for it. So yeah, normal is crazy already enough if you're doing it right. And there's no need to overdo it. On the other hand, culturally, I may be wrong, but this is how it comes across to me. It translates into a general contentment I'm seeing among Dutch people. For example, as a freelancer coming from Ghana, I'm used to a very strong hustle culture. Entrepreneurship is just in our blood. We've seen it all our lives with our mothers, our aunties, and all the women who carry very vibrant, or they carry the very vibrant and informal trade that feeds both the economy and their families. What I have noticed here, and I have a rather interesting story to share about that, is that after registering myself as a freelance creative, my first gig came from pursuing an idea and pitching it directly to a client. It worked out. When I share this story with native Dutch people I know, they are very impressed by the confidence to actually go out there and put yourself out there like that. And I think that's where I see the big difference. Most Dutch people have the privilege of pursuing careers and jobs that are, first of all, available and often very good enough to get very basic yet high quality of life. One doesn't become overly ambitious or find extra ways to keep chasing for more and more and more. When this level of quality is your normal, then too much or doing too much when you already have that much is a tad crazy if you think about it. It's built into society. So the lesson for me isn't to lower my ambition in any way, no. However, it makes me take a critical look at what's in front of me, what's going on smoothly at present in my life, and not overlook it while stressing myself about what's to come. So for me, this one saying puts a lot of things into perspective about life here in the Netherlands, and that's a very personal view that I thought I would share.